The URC is set to get a first-time champion on Saturday, but who's it going to be? My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. This is shaping up to be a very competitive final between these two teams, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Already, like we're at the start of the week, but geez, I want to get to Saturday and just watch this game, but we've got a bit to go. So yeah, this game's on Saturday, June the 14th. It's a 5 o'clock kickoff here in Ireland, so I think that's 7 o'clock in South Africa. But again, as I said before, check your local times. Don't rely on me and be saying Mark told you the wrong time, okay? Check your local listings to see what time it's on down in South Africa. It's Leinster versus the Vodacom Bulls. It's first versus second on the log. So the first time that I think that's happened in a final of the URC as well. It's in Croke Park, the home of Gaelic games in Ireland. So always special when there's rugby there. And you can catch it on Premier Sport in TG Car in Ireland. And I'm sure there's plenty of other places to catch it as well. So what we're going to do in this one is we're going to talk about, previous meetings between these teams down through the years of the URC, and how they've gone previously in the knockout stages as well in previous years. And also we're going to talk about the form of the teams. We're going to talk about how they went in their quarterfinals and semi-finals as well. And finally, we're going to make a prediction. And then later in the week, probably Friday, because it seems like that's when the teams are going to be out. So on Friday then, we'll have another preview, but that preview will focus solely on the teams and stats. So we're not going to go into stats or too much on players. We talk about some players in this one, but not too much. But that one will be more focused on individual players, stats for the teams and stats for players as well. Okay, so we're going to start with the meetings down through the years between these teams, in the URC era. So we won't include anything outside of that. So we go back to 2021-22, the first round of the newly formed URC, and it was Leinster 31, the Bulls 3. So in the very first round of the Bulls' first season in the URC, these two teams met, and both teams in that year, they managed to get to the knockout stages. In the quarterfinal, Leinster beat Glasgow 76 points to 14. At the time, I think it would have been a record in the URC at the time. Then in their own quarterfinal, the Bulls beat the Sharks 30 points to 27. So a bit of an echo of this year. Leinster beat Glasgow in their semi-final, and the Bulls beat the Sharks in their semi-final. So, bit of an echo there. And then in the next round, which that year was the semi-final, these two teams met. It was Leinster 26, Bulls 27, and that one was at the RDS. So, big scalp there for the Bulls, and at the time it was considered a big upset, because like Leinster were all conquering, and people were just expecting almost, that Leinster would continue doing what they did in the Pro 14, Pro 12, Celtic League, etc., and just winning multiple titles. So the fact that, they got knocked out in the semi-finals was a very big shock, especially when they're playing at home. And yes, they may have changed their team for the game, but, they're the chances that you take, and the Bulls took complete advantage of that. Then the Bulls went on to the final, and they lost that final to the inaugural URC champions, the Stormers, 18 points to 13. But yeah, the Bulls getting to the final that year, beating Leinster along the way as well. Then on to next year, 2022-23. So they having met in the first round of regular season in the first year. The second year they meet in the final round of the regular season, and it was a complete reversal. The Bulls 62, Leinster 7. So the Bulls really, laying down the law basically against Leinster in that game. And, you know, we've seen as kind of a pattern for the Bulls towards the end of the regular season now. They give somebody a hiding, you know, and you know, yes, again, Leinster would have sent a weakened team, but players from that team, you know, that got beaten so badly, who are likely to feature in this final, include Tom Clarkson, Max Deegan, Sam Prendergast, and Tommy O'Brien. So, you know, players who've gone on to, you know, claim either starting spots or bench spots in big games for Leinster since then. Then, you know, after that, then we're straight into knockout stages for that year. In the quarterfinals, the Bulls, you know, having, you know, peaked against Leinster, unfortunately for them, they lose against the Stormers again in the knockout stages for the second year running. Stormers 33, Bulls 21, and didn't really do themselves justice in, you know, that quarterfinal. And the Stormers looking to be the, you know, back-to-back champions that year, and they did actually get back to the final. But Leinster then, in their quarterfinal, they beat the Sharks 35 points to 5. Again, the favourites to lift the title. Go into the semi-final, same old. They lose at home, Leinster 15, Munster 16. And then Munster went on to get into the final against defending champion Stormers, and they lift the title that year. Then on to last year, 2023-24. So the teams met in round 13 this time. It was Leinster 47, Bulls 14. So, you know, Leinster, you know, decent win for them. And, you know, it was in that one a much stronger Leinster team than we've seen in a lot of the games that they played against the Bulls. And very decent Bulls team as well in that one. But again, we've seen these two teams go back and forth with scorelines. So you can't read too much into kind of margins, I think, between these two, because they've both shown that on their day they can absolutely destroy the other team if they get, you know, the momentum. But then into the knockout stages, quarterfinals, Bulls beat Benetton 30 points to 23. Leinster beat Ulster 43 points to 20. Then the Bulls pull off the trick again. Semi-final, Bulls 25, Leinster 20. So the Bulls then going to another final, and this time though it's at Loftus Versfeld, and they take on Glasgow, but they lose the final 21 points to 16 at home. So that had to sting them, and I think, you know, this year there'll be extra motivation for them because of that. You know, they've been to two finals and they haven't won either. And then, you know, this year then they again met in round 13, and it was the Bulls 21, Leinster 20 in that game. And it was a very close game. You know, Leinster sent certainly a stronger team than they've done on previous South African tours. You know, especially for that game, because the likes of Slimani and Barrett, Orji Snyman were all down there. They were called back before the second game, which was that 1 point win against the Sharks. But, you know, this one, Leinster, they get a try early on from Barrett. Then after halftime, Osborne gets a try from them as well. There's a few penalties for either team, but Leinster are winning at that stage. Then 57 minute, the Bulls get a penalty try. Clarkson goes to the bin. You know, and then the Bulls, you know, are coming back. They're putting pressure on. Then they get a try through Grobbelaar with 10 minutes to go. It looks like maybe the Bulls are going to win it. Then de Klerk gets a red card with like 6 minutes to go. 3 minutes later, Byrne slots a penalty to give Leinster a narrow lead. And then, you know, it looks like Leinster are maybe going to pull off the win, but the Bulls don't give up. 4 minutes with the clock into the red, Creel then slots the game-winning penalty to clinch it by a point for his team. So, you know, fantastic game of rugby that was, and, you know, very competitive between the two teams. And I think, you know, that in terms of, it's obviously the most recent meeting between the teams, and it's certainly, I think, the most informative about what we might see on Saturday as well. A tight affair between these two, and every kind of kick counting, and every point counting, and every card counting as well. Like in that game we had, I think, a yellow card for either team, and then that red card towards the end, which was effectively a yellow card because there was less than 10 minutes to go in the game. But yeah, very tight one there. So next we're going to have a look at the form of the teams coming into this. So let me pull it up now. So Leinster have won 6 of the last 7. Bulls have won 7 of the last 7, but they've gone like 8 or 9 games on the bounce now, winning. So, in the best form they've ever been in the URC. Leinster, in their run, they started beating the Sharks by 3 points. Then they beat Ulster by 24. They lost to the Scarlets by 13. They beat Zebre by 71. That was when Zebre sent over like their second team, hoping, in the final game to maybe get another win in the season. I think the final game was against Connacht, which they ended up losing. Then they beat Glasgow by 8 points. Not a great performance in that one. They beat the Scarlets by 12, and then they beat the Glasgow Warriors again by 18. The Bulls in their sequence, all wins. First against Zebre by 39, then Munster by 3, then Warriors by 7, Cardiff by 24, Dragons by 40, Edinburgh by 9, and then the Sharks by 12. So that's kind of the form of the teams. You'd expect 2 teams in the final to be mostly on winning streaks, and that's what we have. As I said, the Bulls between the two on the longer winning streak. But let's talk about their quarterfinals and their semi-finals. How they actually got here. So first up, we start with the Bulls. So the Bulls playing Edinburgh, and Edinburgh get a decent start. They get a couple of tries from Houston and Thompson, and then Hanekom gets over for the Bulls. Then Thompson with a second for Edinburgh. Edinburgh really competitive at that stage. Then Creel and Vorser get in before half time from the Bulls. Moody gets over as well, and then Johannes with another one as the Bulls start to kind of take control of the game. Then Norcia, with about 30 minutes to go, he's over as well. And then, so the Bulls have, a decent lead at that stage. Then we get Van Heerden and Thompson go to the bin. And then, around that time, I think just before that, Ashman gets over for Edinburgh, and then Houston for his second. But, Bulls at that stage were fairly comfortable, with the last kind of 20 minutes or so. They had enough of a lead that it didn't feel like Edinburgh were going to, threaten them. So Edinburgh, decent performance from them, but it was pretty clear that the Bulls were going to win that one. So Leinster then, for their quarterfinal, they played against the Scarlets. So starting off, they get a great start, like Lowe and Gibson Park in the first 10 minutes, couple of tries, looking great. Then the Scarlets wake up, and the Scarlets start exploiting space, out wide, and they get Rogers in. And then just before half time, they get Murray in as well. And, only for a Prendergast penalty, the Scarlets could have been, in an even better position at half time. Then into the second half, within 5 minutes, Leinster over again. Osborne gets in, and then 20 minutes to go, Keenan gets in for them. There's a couple of later penalties, should I say, from Prendergast and them, and then Williams gets in for the Scarlets as well. So, decent performance from Scarlets, and they really did expose, Leinster's defence in that game. They really pulled them apart. And Leinster this year again have been really built on the defence. So that was showing where those, space and kind of the little chinks in the armour were there to be exploited for other teams as well. So really good performance from the Scarlets, not so much from Leinster. Then we look at to the semi-finals. So in the semi-finals, Leinster beat the Glasgow Warriors 37 points to 19. So start off, Sheehan over after 2 minutes from the restart. Horn gets in because Creel got to that width, outside that rush defence from Leinster, got to the width, had pace, was able to put a kick in, and Horn got there to score. And it looked like maybe Glasgow were going to be competitive in this one because they were very good in their quarter-final, but it seems like they'd run the race at that stage because Leinster started taking control. They get before half-time, Osborne, Clarkson and Sheehan all get in. Then in the second half, then Osborne and Frawley score as well. Again, it's no coincidence that all these Leinster scores come before the 60-minute mark. Leinster don't score that many tries after 60 minutes because generally they do this. They try and win the game before then, and that's why they struggle when a team actually goes ahead of them after 60 minutes because they don't really have it in their locker I don't know whether it's a mental thing where they switch off or what it is, but after 60 minutes, they find it very hard to get themselves back up again and chase a game if they have to. But, they switch off really the last 10 minutes. Dobie gets in and then Tuipulotu with a fantastic score, just cut through half the team to score and then showed great strength to finish at the end as well. And then a big talking point from this game as well was Sam Prendergast, absolutely woeful from the tee. He converted 2 of the 6 tries and scored 1 penalty. So, not brilliant from him. And, the fact that he was getting an armchair ride from the pack for the most part means that we didn't see him that much under pressure, but we still saw him making mistakes, poor passes, dropping balls, some wayward kicks as well. So, I've said it before, if there was somebody else there who, first of all, wasn't leaving the club because Ross Byrne is leaving Leinster at the end of the season. Otherwise, I think maybe he would be in there starting, or who hadn't themselves lost form, and i.e. Frawley, maybe somebody else would be starting ahead of him already. It might be a good shout maybe to put Frawley or Ross Byrne starting and then bring Prendergast off the bench because, for me, this is a final and, whatever about being a learning experience or whatever, you go to finals to win trophies. That's why any team goes to a final. You're not going there for the experience, for players to, improve or wherever, or have the, have that kind of in their back pocket for the future or wherever. It's about here and now when you get to a final. It's about delivering. And I honestly don't think Prendergast playing the way he did against Glasgow, in a tight game, Leinster don't win that game. The Bulls win every day of the week if it's going to be tight and he's playing like that. So I think a big call on that for the Leinster coaches to make. Then on to the Bulls semi-final. So the Bulls played the Sharks who had dramatically beaten Munster after extra time, and that kicking contest as well, and the whole Winkgate thing and everything. But the Bulls get a good start in this one. They get de Klerk and Moody over in the first 20 minutes, and they're looking good. They're absolutely, and also their scrum is just monstering like a Springbok front row. Absolutely brilliant from them. And Leinster are going to have to watch out for that as well. Leinster's scrum went pretty well against Glasgow, but this Bulls front row, both starting and bench, are going to test them absolutely. And if you want to beat Leinster, everybody knows you take away their set piece, because right now that's what their attack is built on. If you take away their scrum, and then disrupt their line out, you're halfway to winning the title, I think. So the fact that their scrum went so well against the Sharks, they gotta be licking their lips, thinking if we do the same against Leinster, that's gonna make life really, really difficult for them. So, but then into the second half, then before half time, we have to remember 10 minutes or so to go. Voxel goes to the bin. Then 4 minutes ago, Hanekom goes to the bin, and Cameron Hanekom, I'm so disappointed that he got injured in that game, because yes, I'm a Leinster fan, but I wanted to see that guy in the final because he's so good. So it looked bad. I'm hoping against hope that he does actually make the final, because he's such a brilliant young talent, and I want to be able to see those players. I've said it before again and again that, yes, I want my team to win, but I want my team to win playing the best opposition who are also playing the best, and we just happen to rise a little bit higher than them and be able to get the win on the day. I don't want to be playing against teams who are, for whatever reason, missing all their best players and whatever, right? So I'm hoping he makes the final. But also, just on the stroke of halftime as well, Kotsia, he goes to the bin too. So they went like from 15 to 14 to 13, back up to 14, and then back down to 13, all in that kind of space of like 10 or 12 minutes before half time. But also they put in a massive defensive shift, keeping the Sharks out from the line. Yes, obviously they were infringing, because you don't get 3 guys in the bin if you're not infringing. But the crucial thing was they stopped the Sharks getting over for a try. Then into the second half, then the Sharks finally make the numbers tell. They get first Mapimpi over to score in the left corner, and then Hooker in the right corner as well. But after that, then replacements start coming on. You can see that quarterfinal extra time shootout, etc., is having an effect on the Sharks as they're kind of fading in the game. And at this stage, then Johannes puts over a penalty for the Bulls to get them a little bit of breathing space, and then Creel goes in for a try. They pretty much sealed the win, and then the Bulls looked the more likely to score. Beyond that, like, yes, if you have a team that has like some Pimpy, Hooker, Fassi, Esterhazen, etc., in your backline, the 2 Hendrickses as well, you've got a chance to bring something magic to the table and get a score, but it didn't happen for them, and they weren't applying enough pressure to be able to kind of grind the Bulls down, or wherever it was. The Bulls were more applying more pressure than them, and the Bulls saw out the win. But you also had, Jaden Hendricks has slipped over once, I think, taking a penalty. Then Jordan Hendricks slipped over twice, I think, on conversions. And it's just, for me, it's just funny. It feels like Jack Crowley like cursed them or something, and that's why it happened for them. But for the Bulls, another big thing was the bin squad, as in those 3 boys coming back from the bin, having had a bit of a rest, actually gave them extra momentum as well, kind of from that 50 odd minute point after the Hooker try. So it's a weird tactic. I don't think it was a tactic, obviously, but imagine it was a tactic. Let's get guys sent to the bin and then have them fresh later on in the game. But yeah, a brilliant win from the Bulls, and got to be full of confidence now coming in to this final. So that's how the teams got here. We pretty much talked about everything. Like, if you watch me, you know me, I could keep on going for another hour or 2 hours, like talking about rugby, but we're going to pretty much stop it here. We're going to make a prediction, and Leinster definitely improved against Glasgow. The Bulls have, I'm not going to say like like they've kind of stayed at a certain level through the playoffs. You know, like Leinster have been improving, the Bulls have kind of been at the same level, I'd say, apart from like that demolition of the Sharks scrum. Like if they do that against Leinster, I think, you know, if they can do that, I think they're going to win. And as a Leinster fan, you know, that's sort of fear. But you know, I'm just excited to watch the game anyway. Whoever wins, right? It's another one where my head is saying, like, I'm sure everybody's going to make Leinster favourites, right, for the game. For me, I don't feel that, because I think the Bulls have no fear of coming to Dublin to play Leinster. They've done it before. They've beaten them before, you know, and in knockouts as well. So they're not going to have any issues with having to come to Dublin. The fact that it is in Croke Park, I think if it had been maybe the first year of the URC, you know, Bulls did beat Leinster in the RDS in the first year, but it was the first year of the URC. It was a final between these two. It was played at Croke Park. Leinster picking a strong team. Then I think Croke Park becomes a big factor, because at that stage Leinster probably could have come close, you know, or maybe even probably filled Croke Park for a final. Now they can't do it. They can't even fill the Aviva Stadium. You can't even get like in semi-finals in the Aviva Stadium to have the top tier open. So, you know, the fact that it's in, you know, historic home of GEA, etc. Yes, it's special, but are there going to be enough Leinster fans there to make a difference, you know, in terms of a home final? I'm not so sure, honestly. We saw the Bulls had 47,500 fans against the Sharks, and, you know, they really helped them, especially in that period just before halftime where they had to defend for their lives. You could see that, you know, the fans were lifting the players, and the players are feeding off the crowd, and then the players' actions were lifting the crowd, etc. Can Leinster get the same thing in Croke Park? I'm not sure. So, you know, it's one of these where I'm against the Warriors, because the Warriors were in much better form coming into the semi-final than Leinster. It was definitely head Glasgow and heart was Leinster, and I went for Leinster in the end. For this one, I'm honestly, in my head, it's a coin toss between these two. You know, toss a coin, heads Leinster win, tails Bulls, and you know, that's how close I feel it is. I'm sure other pundits are going to tell you about how, you know, oh, well, Leinster have their mojo back now, and therefore they should win or whatever. For me, I don't believe that, honestly, because again, there's too many weaknesses in this Leinster team, and the Bulls have too many of the tools to exploit those weaknesses as well, to just be able to say Leinster definitely going to win. So, yeah, for me, it's very, very close. And the only thing for me that's splitting these teams in terms of picking one is the fact I'm a Leinster fan. So I'm going to go for Leinster in this one, because, you know, when it's that close, you got to back your own team. Even, like, I don't mind being wrong. I obviously hope I'm not wrong, but I don't mind being wrong. You know, Leinster have gone to many finals now over the last few years in the Champions Cup, not in the URC, and they've lost them all. So, you know, as a Leinster fan, you have to get used to that, and maybe it's going to be another defeat in the final. But whatever happens on, you know, Saturday, whether Leinster win or the Bulls win or wherever, I just hope, you know, for all of the fans, that it's an enjoyable occasion, that, you know, the Bulls, I think, you know, are great fans. I know I have lots of South Africans who watch my videos as well. And, you know, if you've been with me from the start, you know that I have a lot of respect for South African rugby as well. So, you know, if the Bulls win, you know, I'm going to be gutted as a Leinster fan, but still, you know, for me, I've said it before. For me, the Bulls are the best team yet to win the URC. And I think, yes, Leinster performed well in the regular season, but this is the third final the Bulls have got to. So you can't, I don't think anyone can argue against that the Bulls are definitely the best team not to win the URC. So if they do it this year, they absolutely deserve it. I'm hoping that Leinster can kind of delay that for what I feel is an inevitable URC title for the Bulls, for at least one season more. But yeah, as I said, I'm back in Leinster, but it's going to be a hell of a game, and I think it's going to be really close. So let me know what you think down in the comments.